because our 2016 income was over $400,000 less than we expected. So we made a $408,000 or $402,000, whatever it was, adjustment on the 2017 budget. We did that a few weeks ago. And the first question I asked is, what can we cut and not affect anyone's jobs, not affect their ministries? What areas can we give and take a little bit so balance this out? And so we did. We cut it back to where we feel like if we do in 2017 what we did in 2016, we're going to be in good shape.
Hello, this is Pastor Terry Goodman, and I want to welcome you to the Wesleyan Connection. This podcast is primarily for the clergy and laity of the Holston Annual Conference. Join with me now as I take a look around the Connection and share some of the things happening in the churches of our annual conference. In today's podcast, I'm talking with Jeff-Lambert. He is the chairperson of the Conference Council on Finance and Administration. And for those that don't quite understand that, just think of it, as he says, as the finance committee for the annual conference rather than in the local church. And we talk about how budgets are set, and we talk about the role that CFA plays in our annual conference. And I encourage you to listen in, and if you've never really thought about how we make the decisions that we make, then perhaps you'll get some insights from this conversation. I'm here today with Jeff Lambert, who is the chair of the Holston Conference Council on Finance and Administration, also pastor of a local church. Is that correct?
Yes, Sevierville First.
Sevierville First. Yep. We're here to talk today about the role that you go by CCFA or just CFA?
We just didn't call it CFA.
CFA. Drop that first C out of there.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're here to talk about the role that CFA plays in our annual conference. How would you describe what CFA does?
Well, CFA is obviously very important. It's kind of like the finance committee in the local church. It's very important that all the ministries and programs of the conference are funded, and we try to do our best to balance that out and take care of that. But basically, in a simplified way, we are the finance committee for the conference, basically.
So what?
Like the finance committee of a local church, but just on a larger scale.
So you help to fund the ministries that our annual conference does through the connectional system.
Absolutely.
How difficult is that?
Of late, it's been fairly difficult. Been fairly difficult. We feel a huge obligation to pay our fair share to GCFA, General Conference Finance Administration, our denomination. We feel a very strong need to pay that 100%.
Well, I think things have changed a little. I was the statistician for CFA back from like 1992 to 2000, and it was my job to calculate the apportionments for all the churches of the annual conference. I think Rick Cherry does that now, doesn't he?
Yeah, well, now it's the tithe, so it's
That's right.
It's not quite as complicated as, of course, the tithe is something, of course, it's scriptural, and people seem to understand it better. There's no miscommunication in terms of what 10% means. Sometimes we've got a few churches maybe that kind of fudge a little bit on what's designated funds and what isn't designated funds, but for the most part, I think everyone understands the concept of the tithe. I think it's a
good biblical principle, and basically you're just asking the churches of the annual conference to give 10% of the income they receive to the annual conference so that the annual conference can fund its ministries.
Correct.
How's that working out?
Well, it's working out okay. I think one of the issues is we have less churches than we used to have. Some of our churches' income is a little bit down from where it was. Our income in 2016 versus 2015 was over $400,000 down in 2016 versus 2015. So we were over $400,000 short of what we expected. One of the things we do is we've been doing lately is we figured, okay, whatever we bring in 2015, for example, we're going to guesstimate that that's going to be our income for 2017 because we do this 21 months or so in advance.
So I was going to say, it's a moving target because we're just finishing up 2016.
Certainly.
But we're developing a budget for 2018.
In the next few weeks, matter of fact, the 2018 budget has to be in third week of March.
I've got my numbers in through the various committees,
That's right.
So you'll be getting those soon.
So we're trying to prayerfully consider what are we going to have by the end of 2018? And we're March 2016, whenever we finish the budget. But we feel like that's a fair and safe way to try to figure you're going to be close to that. Well, we weren't close in 2016. We were $400,000 short. 2006. So what we did a few weeks ago, I met with Rick Cherry and some of the officers of the conference, because they're the ones, and the committee chairs, but we didn't meet the committee chairs, but the officers, they know where the money's going and where the money and the different ways it's being spent. And so I said, we need to be more realistic for our 2017 budget, because our 2016 income was over $400,000 less than we expected. So we made a $408,000 or $402,000, whatever it was, adjustment on the 2017 budget. We did that a few weeks ago. And the first question that I asked is, what can we cut and not affect anyone's jobs, not affect their ministries? What areas can we give and take a little bit to balance this out? And so we cut it back to where we feel like if we do in 2017 what we did in 2016, we're going to be in good shape. But we have no way of knowing, nor do the churches know exactly what they're going to get in year to year. When Sister Jones passes away, there goes $10,000 in the church budget, or $20,000, or $5,000, or whatever it is, and so it's kind of trying to hit a moving target, which is a little bit difficult.
So when churches typically do we're going to wait till December and give stuff, the conference is sort of holding its collective breath, because you're waiting till December to see if that extra income is going to come in.
Yeah, well, you kind of hope. And so our goal was to pay 90% of our fair share. We want to pay 100%, but the money just wasn't there. So budget-wise, 2016 we budgeted 90% to go towards the fair share. Well, we end up paying 78%. I mean, that $400,000 is a lot of money.
It is.
And we come up over $400,000 short. When I looked at the tithe record of the churches, we had 451 churches out of 885 whose income went down in 2016. So, which amounted to about $900,000. The other churches whose income didn't go down, their tithe made up $400,000, a little more than $400,000 of it. So that's part of the issue. And so when the tithe in the local church goes down, then obviously the tithe to the conference goes down. And so, but you don't know who's going to pass away in a year and a half from now, and you don't know exactly the dynamics of the churches. And a church may thrive one year, and the next year have a couple of deaths, or a disgruntled church member, and they quit giving or leave the church, and it affects your income.
What does CFA do other than just work on the budget? Or is there some ongoing initiative or some ongoing plan or idea that y'all are trying to work with or develop to help the conference look at finances in a different way?
Well, as you know, you and I and Roger and we had a meeting, and we want to look at the holistic look at the money for the churches, not just budget, but and budget income. We need to look at endowment funds. We need to look at how do you budget, these kinds of things. And you and I and Roger, we've talked about having some different events. We have a special event coming up this fall to try to help us in different ways. One thing is we feel like many of our churches are 2 or 3 deaths away from a financial crisis.
I can agree with that.
I think most people would. Even the larger churches, if there's some large donors, if they pass or something, it affects the church financially.
Well, in my local church, the top 12 givers give 52% of the entire budget.
Sure.
So any loss from any one of those is going to have a significant impact.
It has an impact. And one of the things to lessen that impact, it won't completely take care of it, but one way to lessen the impact of that is to work with the foundation with endowment funds. My current church had a college endowment, but they didn't really expand it to cover maybe building maintenance or missions or evangelism or other things that an endowment fund may cover. And so we established that this last fall and already had some significant giving to it already. But endowment funds can help offset some of this financial crisis, and so it's not quite as impactful.
Well, stewardship, I'm the chair of the stewardship work area for our annual conference, and we are talking about those kind of things. We're bringing in a special speaker this fall in September to address some needs annual conference-wise. It'll be one of those probably Knoxville, Abingdon kind of things one day and so forth, where folks, laity and clergy, can come and participate. But I do think that there's a need there in our annual conference. One of my ideas on stewardship is that, we've sent over 150 people to Plano, Texas to receive some significant training in the areas of stewardship.
Certainly.
And so I'm going to try, through the stewardship work area, to create a basic kind of curriculum that we could then go into a local church that says, hey, I need somebody to come in and help us with budgeting or stewardship or any of these issues. Yeah. And, we'd have enough people in the districts that, you could, I don't have to send somebody from Chattanooga to Radford.
How do you do a stewardship campaign? Or what are some of the ideas that you have?
We've got the trained people there, but we don't have the infrastructure to make the connections between the local church that needs it and the people that can teach it.
Exactly. And there's all kinds of wonderful resources out there today, too, to help you with a stewardship campaign, but you got to make it your own. You just got to fit your personality of your church and what works for them. But the more we challenge ourselves and people, the more they have a tendency to rise up, to meet that challenge. And we found that when we do a stewardship campaign and people make a faith commitment, we don't hold their feet to the fire and say, well, send them a statement to say, hey, you're behind on your giving. Well, we send them a financial statement, let them know where they're at. And most people, there's a lot of times people say, well, I didn't know I was behind. So that's one of the things about stewardship campaign is not to send a letter say, hey, you're behind, you need to catch up. You don't want to do that. But I've noticed over the years, though, every time we send out a quarterly report, someone makes a phone call and says, I didn't realize I was behind, or writes an extra check because they're on vacation or they were sick and they forgot to write a check. And there's just some little things you can do that's not overbearing or pushy or awkward that, if you're giving, you want to know what you're giving. And if you do a quarterly report, it's easier for people to catch up if they're behind. And I find that helpful.
It is. Is there anything else you'd like to share about the work of CFA in our annual conference?
Well, pray for us.
We will.
We're doing our very best to try to be good stewards of God's money. It's not just the conference money, it's God's money. And it comes from children who give $1 in the pew or a quarter in the pew and a nickel in the pew. And that money comes, we're trying to be as good stewards as we possibly can, trying to balance it out best we can. So,
well, I've got 2 questions to close out.
All right.
And is this moving away from CFA and moving toward you with this question?
Oh, okay.
What is the passion that drives you to be in ministry? What's that burning desire that keeps you going as a minister?
Love for Jesus and the calling He's put on my life.
That's probably the most succinct version I've heard of it.
Yeah.
From various folks. I've asked that question to quite a few of the interviewees, and I like that one, straight and to the point. Yeah. Now the next question is sort of far afield.
Okay.
What would you consider your favorite dessert to be?
Well, being a diabetic, I don't get to eat my favorite dessert, so almost any dessert would be my favorite at this point. But I guess my favorite is pineapple upside down cake. I've loved that since I was a little boy. My mom would make it.
Did she make it in the big iron skillet?
She did.
She put little cherries in the middle of the pineapple?
Absolutely. It's pineapple upside down cake without the cherries in the center of the pineapples.
That's right.
Yeah, that's my favorite. But being a diabetic, I'm not allowed to eat that much anymore.
Well, Jeff, I want to thank you for this interview, and I will encourage the listeners to indeed be praying for CFA and its work, because they've got a lot to do between now and annual conference, and you'll see the result of their hard work when we get to conference and we start looking at that budget.
That's right. Thank you.
So thank you very much.
All right. Thanks.
This is Pastor Goodman. Thanks for listening to this edition of the Wesleyan Connection. Be sure to check back often for more podcasts.